Before we see the view magic, let's appreciate the challenge. In vanilla JavaScript, you have to manually wire everything up. You grab an element from the DOM, add an event listener, write a function to get its value, update a JavaScript variable, and then write more code to push that variable's value back into the UI. This manual process is tedious and a common source of bugs. Now, let's introduce View Solution, a declarative, reactivity-driven approach. Instead of manual DOM manipulation, View establishes a direct, automatic link between your application's data, known as state, and the user interface. When your state changes, the UI updates instantly. This seamless two-way synchronization is the foundation of form handling in Vue. The primary tool that enables this magic for form inputs is the vModel directive. Think of it as a dedicated syntax for creating that two-way data binding we just discussed. You simply add vModel to an input element and connect it to a reactive variable in your script. Let's see the basic structure before applying it to different input types. Let's start with the most common input, the text field. We'll create a reactive state object to hold all our form data. By binding vModel to a property on this object, like formData.name, any text typed into the input will instantly update that property, and any programmatic change to that property will update the input's value. The exact same principle applies to multi-line text areas. You use the vModel directive directly on the text area element. This provides a seamless way to handle larger blocks of text, like a user biography or a comment, with the same reactive benefits we saw with single-line inputs. Let's add one to our form. Now, let's move to Boolean states with checkboxes. For a single checkbox, vModel binds its checked state to a Boolean value. When the box is checked, the linked data property becomes true. When it's unchecked, it becomes false. This is perfect for toggleable options like agree to terms and conditions. But what if you want to collect multiple choices, like a user's interests? By using vModel on multiple checkboxes that point to the same data property, Vue will automatically bind them to an array. Checking a box adds its value attribute to the array, and unchecking it removes that value. This makes collecting a list of selections effortless. For situations where a user must pick only one option from a group, radio buttons are the perfect tool. You'll bind a group of radio buttons to a single data property using vModel. Unlike multiple checkboxes, the data property will hold the string value of whichever single radio button is currently selected. Drop-down menus, or select boxes, work very similarly to radio buttons for single-choice scenarios. By placing vModel on the select element itself, Vue binds the value of the chosen option to your data property. This is a compact way to offer a long list of exclusive choices. Select elements can also be configured to allow multiple selections. By adding the multiple attribute to the select tag, vModel's behavior changes to match multiple checkboxes. It will now bind to an array, and the array will be populated with the value of all selected options. This is less common but very powerful when needed. So far, we've built up a nice form state. Let's pause and visualize our form data object. As we've added inputs for name, bio, interests, and more, our reactive object has been tracking every change. This single source of truth is incredibly powerful, making it easy to see the complete state of the form at any time. Now that we've mastered the basics, let's supercharge vModel with modifiers. These are special postfixes added with a dot that alter vModel's default behavior. They are powerful shortcuts for common tasks like trimming white space or handling numbers, saving us from writing repetitive boilerplate code. First up is .lazy. By default, vModel syncs data on every input event, meaning every keystroke. The .lazy modifier changes this to sync only after a change event, which for text inputs typically occurs when the field loses focus. This is useful for performance-intensive tasks or when you only want to validate after the user has finished typing. Next is the incredibly helpful .number modifier. Even when you use input type number, the value returned from the DOM is always a string. The .number modifier automatically typecasts the input's value into a JavaScript number, saving you from manual conversion with functions like parseInt or parseFloat. Finally, let's look at trim, a simple but essential tool for data hygiene. It automatically removes any leading or trailing whitespace from the user's input before syncing it with your data. This is perfect for fields like usernames or emails where extra spaces can cause validation or login failures. Modifiers are even more powerful because they can be changed together. For instance, you can use .lazy and .trim on the same input. The order matters. The input will first be trimmed on the change event, and then that trimmed value will be synced. Let's see an example combining .lazy and .trim. Now that we know how to collect and clean data, how do we actually submit it? The standard approach is to wrap your inputs in a form element and listen for its submit event. Using the VAEs directive, or the shorthand @submit, we can call a method in our component to handle the submission logic. By default, submitting a form causes a full page reload. In a single-page application, this is almost never what we want. To prevent this, we use an event modifier, .prevent. By adding .prevent to our @submit listener, we tell Vue to automatically call event.prevent default, stopping the reload and allowing our JavaScript to handle the submission smoothly. Collecting data is one thing, but ensuring it's valid is another. While Vue doesn't include a built-in validation library, its reactivity system makes implementing it straightforward. A common pattern is to use computed properties to check the validity of form data in real time and display helpful error messages. We can take this a step further by using our validation logic to control the form's state. For example, we can create a computed property that checks the validity of all fields and returns true or false. This master validity state can then be used to disable the submit button, preventing users from submitting an incomplete or invalid form. As forms grow, managing them in one component becomes cumbersome. The best practice is to break them down into smaller, reusable input components. This improves organization and maintainability. But how do we make a custom component, like base input, work seamlessly with VModel just like a native input? To make a custom component compatible with VModel, it must follow a specific contract. In Vue 3, the component must accept a prop named ModelValue and emit an event named UpdateModelValue whenever the value should change. Vue automatically wires VModel on your custom component to this prop and event. Let's look at the code for a VModel-compatible base input component. In the script, we use define props to accept model value and define emits to declare the update model value event. In the template, we bind the native input's .value to the prop and listen for its @input event to emit the update. This simple setup makes our component fully VModel ready. Now, using our custom component in a parent form is incredibly clean. We can use base input vModelForm.name just as if it were a native input element. All the complexity of the prop and event is abstracted away, giving us a clean, declarative, and reusable way to build our forms. What if your component needs to manage multiple pieces of data? You can actually use VModel multiple times on the same component by providing an argument, like VModel first name and VModel last name. The component would then need to define corresponding props and events, such as first name and update first name. Let's put it all together. Here is a complete registration form built with everything we've learned: a reactive form data object, VModel on various custom and native inputs, modifiers for data cleaning, event handling with .prevent for submission, and computed properties for real-time validation. Notice how readable and declarative the final code is. While implementing your own validation is a great way to learn, for production applications, you'll often want to use a dedicated library. Libraries like Viewlidate, Zod, or FormKit provide powerful, pre-built solutions for complex validation rules, error message handling, and more, saving you significant development time. And that's a wrap on our deep dive into Vue.js forms. You've journeyed from the basics of reactivity and vModel to advanced patterns like modifiers, real-time validation, and creating fully reusable vModel-compatible components. You now have the skills to build dynamic, robust, and user-friendly forms in any Vue application. Happy coding!